Welcome to the Livin'Sky podcast, a show about raising connected, resilient kids in a world that often forgets what they need most. I'm Livin'Sky, a pediatric speech-language pathologist, holistic feeding specialist, and a mom, here to help you understand your child's body, behavior, and biology in a whole new way. Each episode brings you simple, practical tools to support healthy eating, development, and family connection without the overwhelm. Thanks for listening. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Livin'Sky podcast. And today's episode is just me because I really wanted to talk to you about how transformative this year has been. And I wanted to tell you about things that have worked for me, things that I have discovered this year, things that have happened, and just wrap up this year because I find that, at least for me, and honestly for many people I know, it's been the year of transformation, just figuring things out and things shifting and energy changing. And if it was also a transformative year for you, I'd love to hear about your transformation and what had happened. Send me a DM at lena.livinsky because I want to hear your stories. I want to hear what you're up to, and I want to learn from you as well. But I wanted to do this episode because just this year felt so surreal to me. And I wanted this episode to talk about what had happened. And I don't want it to be polished. It's not going to be an educational episode in a traditional sense when I'm going to give you a few tips to do something. It's just going to be a conversation. Just going to be honest, because this year didn't just change my business. It changed my body, my brain, and how present I feel in my life and how healthy I feel. I feel like I'm thriving, and it's not something I could have even imagined last year at this time. I really couldn't have even imagined it because last year at this time, in December of 2024, I was 50 pounds heavier. I was not healing from psoriasis. I was getting new spots and new psoriasis outbreaks on my skin. My scalp was covered. I couldn't really wear dark clothing because if I did, I would have flakes on my shoulders and on my chest and on my back. So I was very self-conscious about that. And I was in a very different place, physically and emotionally. I still felt like I was in the thick of postpartum depression just because my emotions were still so raw, and I didn't have much variation in how I felt. I felt very flat and I felt very uninspired every single day. And it was just like I was going through the motions because I had to go through the motions. And at the same time, I was trying to change things. I was adapting my environment. I was listening to different advice. I was trying to do low histamine foods, and I was trying to do all these things to help me feel better. And I was going through, actually, I had exposure to mold in August 2024, and that I felt repercussions of that, and I felt a lot of symptoms from that for many months to come. So I was just in the thick of it. So to think that I would be here today, a year later, 50 pounds lighter, with clear path forward, a path that I didn't think was possible. I mean, I just needed to share that because so many of us are always looking for ways to heal and for answers to so many different life questions. So if my story steers you in the right direction in any way, shape, or form, or if it inspires you to take action, I that's exactly why I'm sharing. I am hoping that it is inspiring to you in any way, that it's going to give you some answers, and that you can feel like there's hope to change because so many of us feel stuck. And I know because I was there too for so long, for so many years. But there are answers, and many people have different ways of healing. And one thing that worked for me may not work for you. We're all different. We have all different needs. We have all different bodies. But, I think overall, just taking it back to the basics and realizing that it's all connected is really the way forward for most of us. So that's what I wanted to share about today. I'm so excited you're here tuning in. And yeah, let's get into it. I have never shared this before in my podcast, and it's kind of crazy to me that I haven't shared this story, but this is an important moment for me to come back to because this is the moment that shaped my way forward in understanding health from a very different perspective and understanding picky eating from a very different perspective. And that's what most of you tune in to here for this podcast, to learn about picky eating and how to overcome it and some easy ways, easy things you can implement at home that are going to make a difference. And I'm going to tell you my story. I'm going to tell you why picky eating has been one of the ways that has made me understand how to heal. So I can still kind of see it in my head. My son sitting at the kitchen island, his legs dangling, sunlight pouring in. I put dinner in front of him and I was so excited about it because I made dinner that I thought he was going to love, but his whole body just shut down. And it wasn't defiance. He wasn't trying to be difficult. It wasn't an attitude. It wasn't him being a brat. It was honestly fear. It was stress. And it completely showed up in his body. And at the same time, as I was seeing this, my initial reaction was frustration because I worked so hard to get a nice meal in front of him. And I was working a full-time job and I was trying to keep the home afloat. And I was struggling so hard and I was trying to be a good mom. And I was trying to feed my son. And I thought I knew what I was doing because I have been a feeding specialist for years and years and years. And I was failing miserably because all I wanted to do was scream at him. I wanted to just yell at the top of my lungs for him to eat it because I worked so hard and he was hungry. And instead of wanting cookies and chocolate, which are his two favorite things, of course, I wanted him to have a nourishing meal. But my child was just sitting there, terrified of the food I had just lovingly prepared and probably terrified of my reaction. I could see it. I could see it in his body. And that moment cracked something wide open in me. At the same time, I was deep in my own healing, unraveling years of autoimmune issues, postpartum depression, and total burnout. But I started to see what no one had taught me. None of the picky eating programs and advanced feeding training I went through has ever mentioned this, but it clicked for me. Picky eating isn't just about behavior. It's about biology. It's about nervous system safety. It's about the gut. It's about so many different areas. And these things are not going to be fixed with any sticker charts or one-bite rules ever, because it just doesn't work that way if we don't address the underlying root cause issues. So I was sitting there looking at my son, terrified, and it finally hit me. I can't just do this from this behavioral perspective. I can't force him to eat. I have to look deep within to see what's really going on. And I started to put things together, and I started to realize that his sensory deprivation issues were stemming from some nutritional deficiencies. I started to realize that he definitely had some leaky gut and some gut dysbiosis that was causing these abnormal cravings and many different things. And it just clicked for me. Like, why am I focusing on this behavior and him sitting there in front of this plate and me just focusing on him getting a bite when I need to approach this from a very different perspective? So I got down on his level. I gave him a hug. I calmed down with him. I started to talk to him. I started to explain things to him. And he took a bite. He did. And it wasn't a bite out of fear. It was a bite that was rooted in deep connection. And that moment was just a complete transformative moment for me because I knew that every single child needs this type of attention, this type of connection, and this type of understanding in order for them to truly become a curious eater and get out of that picky eating symptom that they're exhibiting, because it is a symptom. It's not a diagnosis. They're not a picky eater. It's not something you wear as a badge of honor. It's just your body, child's body telling you that something else is going on deep within the body. So that's when I created what eventually became the Bloom framework, which is my whole child biology-informed way to finally understand what's driving picky eating and begin to heal it from the root. So once I saw the difference it made in my own family, I knew I had to share it. And I have since used it with so many different clients. And this approach, it's truly amazing because it really works. It meets the child where they are and it meets their needs from a very different perspective than the traditional therapy offers. And I'm just so excited about it. But I really think that this wouldn't have been possible if I wasn't taking care of my own health because I was struggling. I was deep in many different autoimmune related symptoms. I had so many. I had such bad brain fog that I couldn't focus. I couldn't really keep a conversation straight. Honestly, it was hard for me. I started my podcast again because I knew I could get there. I knew I had it within me to have these deep conversations, but I was so afraid. I was so anxious, even. I had so much anxiety around it that I feel like my first few episodes were definitely not my best work because I wasn't there yet. I have not healed. I started this podcast way before I started on this beautiful healing transformation. I just can't believe like how far I have come in season 3 versus season 1. And I'm so proud of this work. And that's why I'm here sharing it. But I had a lot of issues. I had chronic skin issues. So I developed psoriasis when I was 8 years old. So ever since then, I've been struggling. And it flared so badly after postpartum. And it never truly calmed down. It started to come down once I started to really embrace my light environment and really try and get out in the sun as much as possible. That was really helping me heal. But there were so many different underlying causes or root causes that were still lingering that were really not allowing me to heal. So my scalp constantly was inflamed. The skin behind my ears was raw and irritated for years. Like I just had flakes behind. I had it on my belly, on my breasts, like under my arms, on my back, on my thighs. And it was never that bad until I gave birth because I was so nutritionally depleted after I gave birth to my son. Because going into my pregnancy, I didn't really prepare my body for it. I came off of being vegan for 3 years, which completely wrecked my system. It did not work for me. I was having just deep nutritional deficiencies and just mineral imbalances, and my mitochondria health was very poor. I was not optimizing my environment in a positive way. There was a lot of toxicity around me, and yeah, it all came down and it showed up in my skin because my organs weren't functioning properly to clear a lot of these toxins, and it was coming out on my skin. And the brain fog that I was experiencing made me feel like moving through mud, honestly. I used to love deep conversations, learning, thinking, and suddenly it felt like my brain just couldn't keep up. But within me, in my gut, I knew I had all these ideas, but I just couldn't put it all together. Because the overwhelm that I was experiencing, it just didn't match my life. Small decisions felt heavy. My nervous system was always on edge. Weight wouldn't budge, no matter what I did. And I remember that there was this one year where I went to Orange Theory, which if any of you know what it is, like it's a very intense workout. Very intense. It's like an hour long where you're supposed to earn these flat points once your heart rate gets into a certain level. And their philosophy is that you continue burning calories after you even get out, just because of the way that you work during this workout. And I was doing it 3 times a week for about 9 months, and I did not lose 1 pound, not 1 pound. Nothing I did moved the needle. I tried just eating very complete meals, protein forward, lots of protein. It didn't really make a difference for me. I did go on an antihistamine diet for a few weeks, but it was really unsustainable for me. But I did lose like 10 pounds when I was on it, and I kept that weight off because I was really eating healthy overall. But then I plateaued. Like there was nothing else that was working for me because at that time I wasn't addressing the root cause of what was happening to me, and I was not addressing my gut health in any way or form, really. I started to by taking some HMOs, and it was the Reds powder and a different protocol that has been proven to help with the gut, but it just wasn't enough. And layered on top of that was mold exposure, something I didn't understand at first, but that absolutely played a role in my inflammation and immune dysregulation. I was functioning, but I wasn't thriving. I actually went away on vacation in August 2024, and we stayed at an Airbnb, which was just ridden with mold. And nobody else had symptoms, but for me, they started immediately. I woke up, I think the second night I was there, with just my head spinning. And it was just like I couldn't get myself to stop for it to stop in any way, shape, or form. And I was like, well, this is very weird. And then I went on. We were only there for about 4 nights. And then I went on, and after a few weeks, I developed these crazy symptoms. Like, I honestly thought that I had some kind of a cancer because it was just so severe. Things like just inflammation in my throat that I felt. I felt like my throat was on fire for a few weeks. Vertigo and so many different symptoms that just came on suddenly that I couldn't explain. And then eventually I put it all together. I did some testing, and sure enough, I had my mycotoxin exposure. And I mean, the symptoms just added up immediately. Eventually, I started to heal just by going through making my home less toxic and cleaning my air, having good water. And my home, luckily, doesn't have any mold in it. So I'm very lucky there. And trust me, I checked because I was freaking out about it. But you can't heal from a mold exposure, from a mold illness in a moldy environment. So luckily, my home is very clean. So I was able to heal here. But it was a wild journey. And this was around a time when I was exploring more podcasts and exploring different conversations. And that's when I stumbled upon Mary Ruddick, who I am just in such an awe of, like, her story, her approach. For those of you who are not familiar, Mary Ruddick is an ancestral nutritionist. She has traveled the world and has visited with untouched tribes, people who still live in their ancestral ways and in their natural environments. And they live very seasonally, and they live very grounded in nature. And these tribes have been able to preserve their culture for hundreds of years. They've been untouched. They've been untouched by the Western civilization. So what's fascinating, though, is that these tribes, they live in perfect health. They don't have any health issues, and they're thriving. They're so happy. There's no such thing as being an introvert in those tribes. No, they all live in community. They're constantly doing things together, and they're happy. They don't have any type of sickness. They have perfect teeth, perfect health. And it's just mind-blowing to me learning about these people and kind of like trying to understand, like, why? Why is it that they're so healthy when we are so ridden with disease? Like, we're sick as adults and our kids have never been sicker. Over like 60% of kids now have a chronic illness. Like, why is it that they're being so healthy? So it fascinated me. Mary's work fascinated me. And she's also a microbiome researcher, and she shares about it a lot. So every single podcast I learned from Mary, I was just like, oh my goodness, like, let me take notes. It's like a masterclass for me. So I'm a huge fan, and Mary has honestly transformed my life and my health. Her wisdom has been like nothing I've ever experienced before. And her stuff just works. And it worked for me. And she works with very sick individuals, people who are just unable to get out of bed, and people who are just ridden with disease. And she's been able to transform their health for most people. It's amazing. But at the same time, she also went through a debilitating disease. She was the first person ever to heal from dysautonomia, which is essentially where your organs, they just start to shut down. They don't work together. You're in pain. You are essentially unable to get out of bed. You are unable to function properly because your organs are not working. I mean, it's a very, very serious disease, and she was able to heal. And that's when I learned about the GAPS diet. And this is what Mary did to heal back then. And this was years ago. But there's definitely some nuance to that, because I don't think that these types of diets work for every single person. I think they're a great starting point, but we're so sick at this point because of all the toxicity and all the illness around us that we're unfortunately, most of us, depending on a person, but most of us cannot just heal with this type of diet anymore. We kind of get stuck there. And when we try to reintroduce any type of food after, we gain a significant amount of weight, foods that are not allowed on the list, I mean, because we're just unable to process it because we need to heal on the mucosal level. And I'm so glad that I found Mary because I think without it, I would have been also stuck on just GAPS diet, which, don't get me wrong, was amazing. The GAPS diet is a type of diet that eliminates foods that feed the bad bacteria in your gut. So if you have bacterial overgrowth, if you have any type of pathogens in your gut, the GAPS diet aims to remove those so you're not feeding that bad bacteria and you're actually able to feed the good bacteria in your gut. So the foods that are making the good guys in your gut thrive. So it's wonderful. And a huge basis on the GAPS diet is the meat stock. So it's not bone broth because bone broth has a lot of histamines and not everybody can tolerate it. But people who have gut issues, most of them can tolerate the meat stock diet. It's essentially a soup that's cooked on bones and with some meat in it, hopefully fatty meat because fatty meat is so good for you. But it's cooked at a much shorter time because bone broth you can cook for anywhere from like 8 to 24 hours. And meat stock is about an hour and a half or 2. So it's much gentler on the gut and it can be so transformative for your health. So that's what I did when I started. I went on the GAPS diet, but I started with just a soup, right? I did the introduction of the GAPS diet, which is, it's a period of time when you're slowly introducing foods that are eventually allowed on the GAPS diet, but you start off with just the meat and the soup. And then eventually you add in like raw egg yolks and you add in some fermented juices and you add in some avocado and you slowly build on it until you can move on to the full GAPS diet. But oftentimes people who have gut issues, they can't handle a full GAPS diet from the beginning. You have to start to heal at this very basic level. So that's what I did. I did that soup for 30 days and oh my gosh, it was so transformative for me. I was able to not only start to lose weight almost immediately, weight that was holding on for years and years and years and wouldn't budge. And that wasn't even my goal. My goal with this was because I understood the gut-brain connection, my goal with this was for me to kind of get my mind back, get rid of that fog, and to start to heal the skin issues I was having. That has always been my biggest driver, so the weight was kind of just like an additional bonus. But it started to come off literally almost immediately. I lost... You know, I'm a huge believer that light is one of the most powerful medicines for our kids and for us. That's why I love Bon Charge. Their blue light blocking glasses, red light therapy devices, and many other products are designed to support your circadian rhythm and help your family sleep and feel better naturally. In our modern world of screens and artificial light, these small shifts make a big difference. Calmer evenings, deep sleep, better focus, and happier moods. I use Bon Charge products every single day, and even my son has his own pair of blue light blocking glasses for evening story time. You can check out all their products at boncharge.com and use code LENAL to save 15% off your purchase. About, I want to say 40 pounds within 6 months. And I do believe a lot of it was just inflammation. A lot of it was just water retention. Of course, some fat as well, but definitely a lot of it was just like this stubborn inflammation and water that was holding on. But I lost about 40 pounds and I have since lost another 10, but I have shifted from the GAPS diet into a lectin-free diet, which was something that Mary actually recommended for me specifically because I was able to get in touch with her, which is amazing. So she recommended a lectin-free diet because of my autoimmune disease. And oftentimes when you have any type of inflammation with going on in your body, going lectin-free is the way to go. So that's what I did. I have been keeping mostly with the GAPS diet, though, in terms of like not reintroducing carbs, unless they're the good kind of carbs that feed the good bacteria within our guts and they feed our birth microbes. So green plantain flour, some cassava, some very basic lectin-free or low in lectin vegetables, and also some sweet potatoes that are allowed on the lectin-free diet. I've also taken out fruit, which is allowed on GAPS. Majority of it is allowed. I have taken out dairy for now, just because until my gut heals a little bit more, Definitely still no gluten and no gluten. And I am keeping with the soup as much as possible. I actually haven't had it in a few weeks, to be honest, just because it's been kind of crazy here since Thanksgiving and everybody's birthday and Christmas coming up. So a lot going on, but I have to make myself a soup because I do believe that it is so good for your body and it is extremely healing. But at the same time, I've been feeding my birth microbes with the things that Mary has recommended. And I think this is what really misses from a lot of these like amazing healing diets, which is carnivore diet, which is so good, and the GAPS diet and other diets that aim to eliminate a lot of these toxic foods. But then we kind of get stuck because these diets do not feed the birth microbes, which are essential for our health. So this is the nuance that Mary has talked about recently in her podcasts because she's seeing that people used to be able to heal with these diets, but that was about 10 years ago when she healed. Now, because we are so exposed to so many different toxins and our guts are in very bad shape, it's just not enough anymore. We have to rebuild our mucosa, and the birth microbes foods are something that help. So that's what I've been doing. I did GAPS strictly for about 6 months. I've been doing lectin-free for the last 2.5 months. And oh my gosh, you guys, the healing is just incredible. I had a huge flare up in my skin in August. I went to New York to meet with our friends. We used to live in New York. Most people think when you go to New York, you go to, the city and you go see a Broadway play and explore the city. As a former New Yorker, like that's not what I go for. In the summers, we actually go for the beach and for the wineries and just to relax. I love Long Island in the summer. So that's where we went. I went to the beach. We went to the beach a few times and I got a really bad sunburn. I just wasn't prepping my skin enough for that type of sun exposure just because I haven't been to the beach most summer. And I got a bad sunburn that then turned into a psoriasis flare. So my body got covered completely, almost. It was like 60% covered in spots. And that was in August and I started GAPS in February. So I was like, well, this is just not working for my skin completely, right? So I switched to Mary's advice. I started to go lectin-free and I started to introduce the birth microbe food. And I also did testing with Mary because I think the way that we're so sick right now, I do think that testing is warranted for many different reasons. And I did the cellular nutrient assay. That blood test, it looks at the cell level of your cells. It looks at the vitamins, the minerals, the amino acids, the proteins, everything you have in your cell, and if you're depleted in anything. So that was very informative. Based on that test result, I started to supplement very, very specifically. And I also did the GI map to look at the pathogens that I have. And I came back positive for H. pylori, for Pseudomonas, and a few other things that unfortunately these can really bring a lot of havoc into your system. So I'm still waiting on Mary's recommendations based on that GI map. I mean, I have a good idea of what to do, but I want to wait for Mary's recommendations because she's been traveling, so I haven't been able to reach her. And I've been just paying for messages on Connect app because, as rightfully so, I don't think providers who are so incredible and capable should be giving away everything for free. So Mary has an option where you can actually ask her a question on the Connect app and you can ask about any type of medical advice you want. So that's where I've been communicating with her. I'm still waiting for her to get back to me about my GI map results. Like I said, I have a pretty good idea of where we're going to go. But even without addressing the issues that came up on the GI map, the pathogens that have come up, my skin has been clearing so fast. I went from severe inflammation, just redness everywhere on all these spots and itchiness. My skin was so itchy. And I've been on these supplements based on the blood work results for about 2 months. And I have cleared at least 50% of it, and everything has calmed down significantly. And that's even without addressing the pathogens in my gut. So it's quite amazing to see what you can do when you're very specific with targeting what your body needs and going on a diet that's not inflammatory and feeding your birth microbes and using probiotic strains that are very specific to what you need, because there is so many probiotics out there. And some people say probiotics are good, some people say probiotics are bad. But learning from Mary, like, I know that they're very specific strains, and there are multiple strains of one type of probiotic. So, for example, the Lactobacillus plantarum, right? There's so many different strains of that one, and they all do different things. So being able to introduce this one particular strain that you need is key, right? And the plantarum one is just incredible for so many different things. But I'm only using currently 2 very specific types of probiotic strains. And before this, I was using a few different strains. But I do think that probiotics, if they're introduced at the right time and the right amounts and with the right types, can be life-changing for your health. But what truly changed everything for me really was learning from Mary. Her work helped me understand something I now apply to everything, including picky eating. And there is no universal healthy. There's only what your body can tolerate, process, and use right now, and what your body needs, because we all have such different things that we need. And through testing a personalized guidance, I learned that foods I once thought were nourishing were actually inflammatory for me. So going lectin-free was definitely the right way. And I adapted my diet based on my results, not based on ideology or what somebody else was teaching online. This was based on what was working for my body. And I implore you to do the same. Pay attention. If your child is picky and you're noticing that after every time they have eggs, they're irritable, or they're having a bit of a skin rash. And usually that's a sign where we pay attention to, right? But if their behavior changes, or if they're moody, or if anything, pay attention to these signs, because their body is telling you something that's going on within. And my body responded in a way I didn't think was possible, because clearly I struggled with so many different ailments for so long. And I still can't believe that I lost nearly 50 pounds. I am lighter now than I was before I got pregnant with Nate. I'm about 20 pounds lighter now, which, and even before I got pregnant, I wasn't able to lose weight because I was doing Orange Theory before I had Nate. And all I wanted to do was lose 20 pounds, maybe lose 25, which, it can be a lot. If you're really working hard towards it, you should be able to reach that goal if your body is processing everything correctly. But it wasn't for me. So I am just so glad I found Mary, I'm glad that I found this clarity this year, that I've been able to transform my body, because it gave me a completely different understanding on health, which now I'm able to use when working with parents of picky eaters. This experience didn't pull me away from my work. It deepened it. It confirmed everything I believe about children. Kids don't refuse food because they're difficult. They refuse food because something in their body doesn't feel safe. Just like I couldn't think clearly when my system was inflamed, kids can't explore food when their gut, immune system, or nervous system is overwhelmed. This is why I focus on biology first. This is why pressure never works. This is why the Bloom framework starts with balanced health. If you're listening and thinking, this sounds like me, or this sounds like my child, I want you to hear this. You're not broken. Your child isn't broken. Something is asking for support. You don't need to use force. Start to observe, start to connect, start to look within. And it doesn't have to be just this extensive testing and hours and hours of work in order for things to start to shift. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I understand things from a very different perspective now. I do believe everything is connected within our body. Our health is connected. It's not about you having fungus on your nail and only that part of your nail specifically being inflamed, or that specific part of your nail or your finger being affected by some kind of illness. It's something else manifesting as fungus in your nails, that something is happening in your body that is manifesting that one symptom, right? It's the same with picky eating. It's the same with weight. It's the same with just a lot of different elements that we struggle with as parents, as moms, as humans. I do implore you to look within. I implore you to get outside, get back out in the sun. It is so healing. It shifts our microbiome more than food itself, optimizing our light environment, trying to minimize the Wi-Fi within our house if you can turn it off at night. Try to introduce better type of lighting so it's not flickering LED, maybe some incandescent bulbs, which are more affordable than a lot of the amazing lighting that's out there right now, but it can get expensive. So even incandescent bulbs, bringing those back is so great for the home. Minimizing blue light exposure, drinking filtered water with minerals in it, airing out your home or getting a really good quality air filter to collect some of that mold and toxins within your house. There's so many things we can do to be healthier on this very basic level that is going to move the needle in the right direction for you, for your health, and for your picky eater. And I am just so happy that I was able to share this with you. If any of it resonated, if any of it feels true, shoot me a message, shoot me a DM on Instagram at lena.livin'Sky. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to hear what are you struggling with right now, because there are answers out there for anything that we're figuring out, or we're trying to figure out, anything that we're dealing with, anything that our kids are dealing with. We can always move the needle in the right direction. Sometimes these shifts are almost immediate. It blows my mind how quickly things can shift. And maybe a little longer, that's fine too, are always going to shift in the right direction when you put yourself in the right environment to heal. Thank you for being here. I'm so happy that I was able to talk to you about this. And if one of your biggest challenges is picky eating and your child struggling to eat and your child just refusing to even sit at the table with you, or just having a very poor diet of mostly ultra-processed foods, or any type of picky behavior, that's why I created the Peaceful Plate Checklist, where I go into a little bit more detail on my Bloom framework, and I give you very basic tips to address all these different areas. They're typically out of balance for picky eaters, with basic shifts you can do at home. It's a checklist. You can print it out. You can pop it on your fridge so that you don't forget. And it's going to give you some amazing information of where you can begin with your picky eaters. You can grab it at lenalivin'Sky.com/checklist, or you can just grab it in the show notes below. But thank you so much for being here. Here's to a happy and healthy 2026. I hope you have a wonderful time with your family in this holiday season. And I do hope that you tune in for season 4. Can't believe it's already season 4. And that's going to be out in a few weeks, sometime in February. But thank you for being here. I'm so happy you're here. And bye for now. Thanks so much for listening to the Livin'Sky podcast. If this episode resonated, please leave a quick 5-star review or share it with another parent who'd love it too. It really helps more families find the support that they need. And don't forget to join my newsletter at lenalivin'Sky.com for more tips and free guides. Sending a little sunshine to your kitchen today. See you next time.